Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Your Daily Star Trek News. Today is Sunday, February 27th, 2022. Coming up on the show today, there's some questions over the Kelvin timeline crew for Star Trek 4. Playmates Toys announces a new line of action figures for Star Trek Prodigy, and Discovery wins big at the Makeup Artist and Hairstylist Guild Awards. Plus, I will remind you how you can score a free copy of No Man's Land, the new audio drama from Simon and Schuster. That'll be coming up towards the end of the show. My name is Alison Pitt, and today's show is supported by people like you through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/daily Star Trek news. Now, if you're listening to me on the podcast today, I would once again encourage you, come over and join us on YouTube. We do this show live every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. There's chat, I do the news, some show and tell and other stuff that happens, and then you can stick around at the end for some chat that won't make it into the podcast feed. So yes, please come and join us. It's youtube.com/daily Star Trek news. Now, you may notice that my voice is not that great today, so I'm going to try and keep the show short. I'm recovering from a sinus infection, so for those of you who have had a sinus infection, you know it's a touch and go towards the end, but we'll get there. It'll be great. Some other things that I want to remind you of before we get going. All of this week's news stories are up on dailystartreknews.com, all the original sources, pictures, videos, etc. We also do history and trivia up there too sometimes. And of course, the events listing, which is not to be missed every Thursday. So let me move on quickly to the poll. This week's poll is kind of dumb, but they're all dumb, and I enjoy doing them. So I want you to tell me who would win in a fight. The Great Barrier, or the Galactic Barrier. Now, I'm not 100% sure whether all of you will know what I'm talking about. The Galactic Barrier, of course, was the subject of this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery, and a few others. It's been around. People know about the Galactic Barrier. The Great Barrier is the one that they talk about in Star Trek V. So the Great Barrier is at the center of the galaxy. The Galactic Barrier is at the outside of the galaxy. There's arguments. It's not clear whether they're connected or what. We don't really care about the science today. I just want to know who would win in a fight. which one's more badass? You tell me. So yeah, there's a poll here in the chat if you're watching on YouTube. There's also a poll active on Twitter at the moment, and that'll go overnight. And of course, we will review the answers to that poll question both here in the chat and on Twitter before the end of the show. So yeah. I'm sorry, everyone, it's already starting to hit me, so let's just get on with things. All right, before we start, the beginning of the show is going to be a bit of a downer, and I'm sorry, but please stick with me because there's some important stuff. I would be remiss in my job as somebody who talks to people on a weekly basis without mentioning the fact that there's a war going on right now in Ukraine. And I just wanted to vocally say the fact that I support the people of Ukraine in defending their country. There's no two bones about that. I am not a politician or a historian. I have absolutely no credentials to discuss what's actually happening there at all. But I do know a little bit about media literacy, and given the state of the world, I thought it would be worth probably taking a second to talk to you about how we here at Daily Star Trek News look at information and how we vet the information that we choose to share with our audience, which is you guys. To start off with, I just want to say that the stories that we choose, we try to be informative and entertaining, and we select what we choose to share with you. And that's an important point to say. There's a lot of information out there. We actively select what we choose to then share onto our audience. Now, we choose the stories that we select by what we think is going to enhance people's lives or enhance people's experience of the Star Trek fandom, because we care about Star Trek fans. But we also select things that we think are going to drive traffic to our revenue sources, and that includes YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube today. That helps us keep doing what we're doing because it costs us money to run this show, it costs us money to pay the people that work for us, and it costs money to have all the infrastructure that allows us to broadcast to you. So that's important to keep in mind. We are not a profit house, but it does enter into the equation. We do work hard to make sure that we're sharing really good information. We try to avoid rumors and speculation, and we also try to avoid spoilers here. That's just part of the identity that we have established for ourselves as an organization at Daily Star Trek News. Um, the reason that I bring all that as like a preamble is to just then give you some context about how we choose our stories and how we vet to make sure that we're giving you good and reliable information, and that you know that you can trust us as a source of news. So when we choose a story based on what I said before, um, we check two things broadly. I mean, there's more than that, but it boils down to effectively two things, which is number one, the reliability of the source that the information comes from. And number two is the relevancy of the context. So, what other things are happening that make whatever the news thing is relevant to what's going on right now. So the easy one is the reliability of the source. And broadly, I mean, I think as a gut feel, most people will understand what the reliability of the source is, although there are some times that it can be misleading. Is it somebody that you know, somebody who has firsthand experience? Is it somebody whose reputation or access depends on the quality of the information that they're giving you? And also, are they being transparent about how they acquired their facts or their level of trustworthiness about the facts? So, as an example, we will, and we have done in the past couple of weeks, I will report on things that are unconfirmed, but they're reported by somebody like the Hollywood Reporter. And in fact, there's a story later on today, because the Hollywood Reporter, their entire business model depends on their access and their reliability of information. They are not motivated to uh, push false rumors. That would be problematic for their business model. Other smaller blogs might report the same information, but that for us would be less reliable because their business model may not necessarily depend on that sort of professional level of access. So that's a good indication of how you can tell the difference between a good source or a not so reliable source. Largely, your gut is gonna dictate that. Also, don't believe blue checks on Twitter. Always question them. I say that with us being a blue check, so yeah. Okay, so that's number one, the reliability of the source. Number two, the relevancy of the context. And this kind of falls into a few different categories. The basics is when and where did somebody say something. So if you're reading an article about something that happened, a fact, whether it's so-and-so got cast in whatever the next Star Trek movie is, or so-and-so, I don't know, says this spoiler is going to happen. When did they say that and where did they say that? Was that at a trade conference? Did somebody say that somebody's brother's cousin heard it? Was it 2 years ago? All of these things make the context relevant of the information that you're getting. Can you find a confirming story somewhere else from another reliable source? That's a good one. And is the full context of what they're saying transparent? So if you only get like one sentence quote and nothing else, you should definitely call into question whether you're getting the full picture of what that person said. And then the final thing is, again, what is the motivation behind the report that you're reading? Is it to generate web traffic? Is it to inform the public or whatever? If that's not really clear, you might want to question exactly the truthfulness of the news that you're reading. Anyway, I say all those things. Those are just the things that we take into consideration here at Daily Star Trek News before we pass on information. Star Trek is a fictional universe with a fandom, and it's just a business, right? But it is similar to other areas of the news in that there are both good and bad players, and it's really hard to tell the difference. Telling the difference is what's generally known as media literacy. I'm sure you get that. And all of us individually have a responsibility to build up our media literacy because there is no such thing as truly unbiased media. I could do a TED talk on that. That is, arguably my opinion. I'm not like a credentialed journalist, and I didn't go to school for journalism. But you need to be smart yourself about your own media literacy. So please keep that in mind. Anyway, sorry about the rant. I just wanted to sort of give you a little insight in the transparency of the things that we do here in our little tiny corner of the news media, Star Trek news. But I hope that it will help some of you make decisions about how you consume media in general, both related to and not related to Star Trek. Anyway, that's that. Um, Thank you for listening to my little rant, and hopefully things get resolved in Ukraine very quickly and peacefully. All right. So I said the start of the news today was going to be kind of a downer, and it is. So, but the first story today is news of the death of Sally Kellerman, who, of course, was a guest star on the second pilot episode of Star Trek, Where No Man Has Gone Before. And as per usual, I'm going to read the lovely obituary that Chris wrote for us because I'm not great at doing it on my own. Um, so yeah. Oscar-nominated actress Sally Kellerman has passed away. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Kellerman died due to complications from dementia on Wednesday, February 24th. She was 84. While she had a lifelong passion for singing, Kellerman began her acting career in the early 1950s, first appearing in a stage production of Look Back in Anger alongside fellow Star Trek guest actor Dean Stockwell. Kellerman made her on-screen debut in Reform School Girl in 1957 before taking on numerous television appearances. In 1966, Kellerman appeared as Dr. Elizabeth Daner in Where No Man Has Gone Before, the third Star Trek episode ever to air. Just 4 years later, Kellerman would take on what is arguably her most memorable role as Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan in the 1970 film MASH, alongside other folks such as Renee Auberjonois. Kellerman's standout performance in MASH earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. Now, according to IMDb, Kellerman stacked up 158 film and television credits during her career. Other credits include roles in The Twilight Zone, The Boston Strangler, That's Life, Back to School in 1986, and a recurring role on The Young and the Restless. With a desire to get back to her roots as a singer, she recorded her first album, Roll with the Feeling, in 1972. Her second album, Sally, was released in 2009. In her 2013 memoir, Read My Lips, Stories of a Hollywood Life, Kellerman reflected on the ups, downs, and everything in between while pursuing a career in entertainment. You can read more about Sally Kellerman and her life in her obituary in The Hollywood Reporter. And thanks again to Chris for writing that for us this week. All right. Okay. I'm going to move on now to things that are a little bit more like we're used to talking about on this show, which is actual Star Trek news and a little bit more fun stuff. So, okay, so last week we talked about Star Trek 4 and the announcement by J.J. Abrams that Star Trek 4 was going to be filming with the Kelvin timeline cast and some new faces starting later this year for that late December or that December 2023 release date. So in comes again, wow, it's really heavy on the Hollywood Reporter today. Sorry, guys. In comes Hollywood Reporter in a story this week, spoiling the news that some of us thought might be the case, which is that that announcement was a bit of a surprise to most of the Kelvin timeline Star Trek cast. Now, I remember at the time it wasn't 100% clear whether they actually had everybody signed on. Usually casting announcements come before the announcement of filming, and that didn't happen this time around. But now, according to The Hollywood Reporter, most of those actors were a little bit blindsided. Here's what The Hollywood Reporter had to say. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that most, if not all, teams for the franchise's primary players, who include Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Simon Pegg, Karl Urban, Zoe Saldana, and John Cho, were not aware that an announcement for another film was coming, much less that their clients would be touted as part of the deal, and certainly not that their clients would be shooting a movie by year's end. Insiders say that Pine, who plays Captain Kirk, is the first to enter early negotiations as he is the linchpin to the project. So, remember how I said a few minutes ago that we don't usually like to talk about rumor and speculation? Someplace like the Hollywood Reporter is an exception to that. They do have good inside sources, and this story was both published in the print version of Hollywood Reporter and online. So I think there's probably legs to it. But of course, we haven't had any official announcements, and it may not even matter. Things like this, eventually we'll find out more, and until then, you could speculate all you want. But it is important context to the announcement last week that J.J. Abrams has said it's definitely happening. There's a little bit of doubt cast on that now. So we will be watching that with close attention over the next several months to find out what is happening. But certainly, I think um, i- most of the people that I have spoken to, including myself, are in favor of another Kelvin timeline film. So hopefully that will happen. It'll happen on schedule. We'll see. All right. Okay, so the next story is one that I am personally very excited about and have on my wish list. So Playmates Toys, who are just off the back of announcing a whole new line of Star Trek figures, and we had it was uh, Kirk and Spock from Wrath of Khan, and we had Data and Q and Picard and something else I can't remember. Oh, Saru and Burnham from Discovery. They have announced a line of toys from Star Trek Prodigy in a move that surprises no one, right? It's a kids show, so of course they're going to release action figures. But it's still exciting. We've even got pictures of some of the first few that they're releasing, and they look really great. Okay, so here's what Karl Urban, who's the senior vice president of Playmates Toys, said about these toys. We are excited to be bringing Star Trek Prodigy toys and accessories home to families for the first time. This new lineup we're unveiling is highly focused on playability. We want kids to take the toys out of the packaging and engage in imaginative play as if they were part of the Star Trek world themselves. That makes me very happy. Um, I'm assuming we assume they mean kids of all ages because probably some of us will get them. I personally am hoping for a 0-1 because I love Zero. Um, Up in the lineup, we've got Dal and Murph and Dal appear to be packaged together. Gwyn, Jen Compog, Zero. Rock Talk is going to be coming in early 2023. And one that wasn't in the picture but is definitely listed in the press release is Hologram Janeway, which I think will be a very popular one, especially if they, like next year, if they release the scary emo Janeway too. I like her. So these are 5-inch 1 to 14 scale figures, 14 points of articulation, and other statistics specific to action figures. Anyway, they look amazing. Those should be hitting shelves in October of this year, except for Rock Talk, of course, will be coming next year, but just in time for Christmas. Also, my birthday's in October. I'm just saying. Anyway, Star Trek Prodigy. By then, we also may have seen the second half of the first season. So, yeah, if you want to catch up on Star Trek Prodigy because you haven't already, it's actually a good time to binge it. It's available. The first half of the first season is available on Paramount Plus, and then we can look forward to the rest of it later this year. All right. So, our last story today is really a follow up on. Excuse me, it's a follow-up on a story we brought you a couple weeks ago. And actually, this is kind of an in case you missed it because the event actually took place on, I think, the 19th of February. So it was a little while ago. But Discovery actually won really big at the Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Guild Awards. And this is no surprise. If you watch the awards nominations and stuff for Discovery, they always get really good kudos for special visual effects, makeup effects, etc. This time around, they were nominated for a few things, and they basically won everything, which is great. So the big one was the main award was what is it? Yes, it was Best Special Makeup Effects for a TV series, a limited miniseries, or new media series, and that was just for the series as a whole. But also, we had Doug Jones won the inaugural chair award just for basically uh, being an amazing guy who wears prosthetics really well. He said of that award, "I feel a little guilty receiving an award for basically sitting in a chair while you guys did all the work," which is, I think, being a little bit too humble because Doug Jones, you know, doesn't. I think most people who have seen him in any of his roles, Star Trek or otherwise, would argue that he wears those prosthetics very, very well. So it's good for him that he won that inaugural award. Sonequa Martin Green was there to present him with that award, and she said of him that he's a phenomenal actor, a true artist, a warrior, and a genius of the mind and body. He's a legend, and he's an angelic gem of a human being. I love him deeply, which is very kind of her to say. Um, Also at the same awards ceremony, Joy Zapata, who worked on TNG, Generations, and Nemesis, also received a Lifetime Achievement Award. So it was a good day for Star Trek at the Makeup Artist and Hairstylist Guild Award. You can find out more about that and all the other winners on the Guild website, which is it's local706.org, part of IATSE. So yeah. Okay. Just going to pause here really quick because that's pretty much the news for this week. Of course, it was a short week. We took a couple of days off to celebrate or to observe the President's Day holiday and just, give our writers a little breathing room. Um, I have, wow, just so much more stuff to show you. Okay. First things first, I do want to thank all of our patrons who are watching. You guys are the ones who support the show, keep us going, and kind of keep the lights on, as it were. If you are interested in also supporting the show, it's really easy to join up. Go to patreon.com/daily Star Trek news. We have options from just $1 a month, or if you go for the whole year at once, it ends up being about $10 because there's a yearly discount. So check that out, patreon.com/daily Star Trek news. I would appreciate that. Also, if you are in the market for a free copy of the new audio drama from Star Trek Picard, which is called No Man's Land, featuring Michelle Hurd and Jerry Ryan, we've got 10 copies to give away. So that is running. Entries are running this week and next week. Entries close on the next Saturday a week. Forgive me, I'm bad with dates. You can find out all of the information on that giveaway, how to enter, and what the details are at dailystartreknews.com/giveaway. There's also a tweet that is pinned to the top of our Twitter page. So you can go to twitter.com/Daily Trek News and learn more about it there. Please enter. It should be very good. And everyone who has heard it so far has said it's a very good drama and definitely worth your time. Right. Before I move on to very cool, as usual, Star Trek show and tell, I do want to remind you there's a poll in chat. Tell me who would win in a fight between the Great Barrier and the Galactic Barrier. You can vote here on YouTube chat, or you can go over to Twitter and vote there as well. Anyway, okay. So today's Star Trek show and tell was prompted. I was kind of inspired. So as we all know, Star Trek Picard is coming up like this week. It's this week, right? The 3rd of March. And the production designer for Star Trek Picard, whose name is Dave Blass, he's on Twitter at Dave Blass if you want to follow him. He posted some screenshots earlier to yesterday, saying the world building of a show like Star Trek Picard takes hundreds of people all collaborating and busting ass for long hours during COVID craziness for 2 years. Honored to work with such a talented team. And he posted a series of lists of the names of the art team. Is it the art direction team, the set decoration team, props, playback, and the construction department? These are all people who kind of work hard behind the scenes to make Star Trek Picard come to life. And if you look at the very bottom of the first page of names is two names that those of you who play Star Trek online will be familiar with, which is Thomas Moroni and Hector Ortiz. Hector is their concept artist, and Thomas has been promoted now so many times. I don't know what his title is, but he's the guy that does all the ships. Anyway, it's awesome for them and exciting for those of us who kind of watch what's going on, because I want to know what they have to do with Picard. We'll find out. Anyway, so the point is that Star Trek Show and Tell this week is this poster that I picked up. I'm not 100% sure where. It must have been STLV in 2017, because it says 2017 CBS Studios. And it's got the Xbox and PS4, so it's after they launched on console. And so it must be that. But yes, so this is a Star Trek Online poster. And it's the schematics of the inside of the Enterprise D, and all LCARsified, and you can read all this stuff. I don't know how much I probably can't zoom in on this very well. It's a great poster. I haven't framed it or anything. It actually usually sits on my shelf back behind here, and I love it. I will never, ever, ever get rid of it. So that's that. Anyway, that was inspired because, that team at Cryptic Studios has been doing such wonderful work on Star Trek, and Star Trek assets for so many years. Yes, I can't say enough about that team. So, in addition to congratulations to Thomas and Hector for getting their names on that list, go and play Star Trek Online, because it's amazing. Anyway, okay, I have just actually seen in the chat BC, who is wonderful, has just mentioned, have we mentioned 10 Forward the Experience yet? And no, we have not. We'll probably do a story on that coming up this week. If you don't know what I'm talking about, 10 Forward the Experience is like a pop-up promotional marketing experience thing that's happening in LA in 2 weeks' time. They're setting up 10 Forward. I bought my tickets and I'm very excited. I don't have. I will find the URL that you can go and book those tickets for. I'm sorry I don't have it to hand. I will find the URL and put it in the show notes or down below in the video for this, so that you can go and check it out. If you can feasibly get to the Los Angeles area, I think it starts the 10th of March and it goes through all the following week. There's 2 seatings a night. It's about $25 a person, and it's got themed stuff. It's in a themed place, and they have a shop, which I will be spending money at. You do have to be COVID vaccinated in order to get in, so keep that in mind. But it should be a fun little experience. And like I said, we'll do a story on that sometime later this week. So we'll make sure to bring you more details. And thank you, BC, for mentioning that. All right. Okay, guys, listen, that is going to be it for today. Don't forget to vote in the poll. And I'm going to get out of here before I start coughing or being more embarrassing than I usually am. So that is it for this week in Daily Star Trek News. Thank you for listening. And just a reminder that if you were listening to this on the podcast, it's way more fun on YouTube. So come and join us. Join us in the chat. Say hi to everybody. And also, you can see things like the awesome LCARs inside of the Enterprise poster that I showed. So reminder as well, all of the things that I talked about on today's show, including other stuff as well, is available on dailystartreknews.com. dailystartreknews.com is also the place that you can sign up for our daily newsletter, so you can get all that stuff delivered straight to your inbox every day. It's nice and convenient. This show is produced by me, Alison Pitt, and the stories today were written by Chris Peterson, Marina Kravchuk, Jack Brown, T. Rick Jones, and David Powell. So thank you to all of those guys with whom none of this would be possible. Um, wait, without whom none of this would be possible. Um, and finally, I just want to say that again, today's show is supported by people like you, people who sign up through Patreon and decide to support us on a monthly or a yearly basis. So you can find out more about how all that works at patreon.com/daily Star Trek news. Right. Oh my God, you guys, I didn't do the poll. I'm so sorry. Listen, no joke. I've been so ill this week. I'm really off my game. So I'm not going to sign off yet. Hold on. Hold that thought. All right. You guys have a minute to do the poll in the YouTube chat. And I do want to have a quick shout out to John Martin for his super chat. Hey, John Martin, how's it going with you? And thank you for joining us today. Thanks for watching. Right. Okay. Let's look at the poll over on Twitter. I'm not sure everybody understood the question this week. In fairness, it was kind of weird. So currently winning with 63.6%, who would win in a fight? Currently winning is the galactic barrier. So clearly you guys think the galactic barrier would put up more of a fight. The Great Barrier is coming in with only 36.4% of the vote. If you think that's wrong, go and vote now. It's open overnight, so we'll see. Right, I'm going to end the poll here in the chat here. Okay. Okay. So here on YouTube, who would win in a fight? The Galactic Barrier, the Great Barrier. In the I'm going to stop talking. In the lead with 78% is the Galactic Barrier. So congratulations to the Galactic Barrier. By popular vote, you are the badass of the barriers. The Great Barrier, of course, coming in with only 21% of the vote. So that's sad. I'm kind of wondering if you guys are just ageist because the Great Barrier, put up a fight a long time ago. I was actually kind of leaning towards the Great Barrier because listen, the Great Barrier contained a godlike being who couldn't get out, right? He had to lure somebody in order to get out of it. So I don't know, that's pretty badass. The Galactic Barrier, on the other hand, people just go across it all the time. They just jump across, or the Picard wormhole dudes, they just find a wormhole and jump in. So I actually think the Galactic Barrier is pretty weak. Don't tell it I said that. Anyway, that's it. I've already done the outro, so I'm not going to do it again. I appreciate you all listening. I appreciate it very much. And I will be back next week with more of the Star Trek news that you need to know, hopefully in a more organized fashion. And we'll go from there. I'm Alison Pitt. Live long and prosper. and everybody else, you can stick around for a couple minutes. I'll come and say hi to people in the chat. Sorry, you can already hear my voice is going. I tried to keep it short, and then I ended up ranting again. Anyway, thank you all for being here and listening, and yeah. Thank you, BC. That's very kind of you to say. Listen, I took so many COVID tests and I did not have COVID, and it's just unfair. I've actually seen a few people who've had similar things where, okay, they didn't get COVID, but they got really, really sick with other things. This one was just a cold that got out of hand. And listen, I was on my back for 3 days. It was hardcore. Anyway, the timing was great because I did last week's show, and then I got sick in the middle, and then it was fine for this week's show. It's good. Yeah. War Dog Heim. I get the giggles on the regular basis. For those of you who, Eventually, I'd like to think most of you will meet me at a Star Trek convention or something. I giggle when I get nervous, and I get terrible, terrible stage fright. All of what you're seeing right now is is me fighting the intense instinct to run away. Just FYI. Um, so Anne brings up a really good question, and I actually saw your question on Twitter, and I haven't had a chance to follow up on it yet. She asks about the Playmates figures. Are they tactile? Will I be able to feel their features? I believe, based on the pictures that I've seen, they look like they will be. I'm not sure. I mean, there's lots of points of articulation, which means like lots of different pieces, and from like so. I don't know how much you have been able to see about how Zero is put together. So I'm particularly like I love Zero to death. Love that character. Um, they're put together with like lots of different pieces of metal because as a Medusan, they don't have a corporeal being. They've put themselves like they've created like a body for themselves out of basically scrap metal and put it all together. So it's very patchwork. And by looking at the picture, it looks like that's all sort of textured in there so that you could feel all the different panels and stuff. So I'm hoping that will be the case. I'm going to try and see if we can find if they have samples or something that they can send so we can actually get a hands-on and maybe do an unboxing. But I haven't seen anything like that yet, so we'll see. I will let you know as soon as I do. Stress stress-free K. I can't tell on the chat whether you're being sarcastic or not, so forgive me. But he was talking about the Kelvin timeline crew saying, we really want this movie, just give the actors what they want. It's not like any of them are that busy. They actually are, and I think that's part of the issue. They're committed to, some of them are committed to some big franchises. Chris Pine is committed to Wonder Woman, although I don't know if he'll be in it anymore after Wonder Woman 84. Zoe Saldana is doing Avatar and Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on. I mean, I don't really see how anybody says no to J.J. Abrams, especially after he closed like literally the record deal in Hollywood last year, the year before. Um, Development deal. I don't think many people say no to him lately, but I don't know. It's odd. And of course, going back to the media literacy thing, it could all be a giant marketing push to generate buzz. So keep that in mind too. Um, uh, BC, thank you for Olimaraining in the middle of the show. You can feel free to watch the rant back. Once it processes on YouTube, it'll be available the whole time. So, um, and yes, and makes a good point. This is going back to the media literacy thing. When I see something, especially a comment from a friend on Facebook, I go to sources I've always trusted to see if they repeat it in their broadcasts. Once they do, then I'll believe it. And that's a really good, that's a really good point. Just as a general rule, the instinct is so strong when you see something that's like, wow, amazing, to just like hit the retweet button or hit the share button or whatever. And sometimes you just got to remember like no, like individual people, we don't get any clout from like being the first one to report that blah 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 whatever. um the far bigger risk is that you're amplifying somebody else's false messaging, which is you just don't want to do. I would point you towards, actual like Department of Justice investigations on the influence of outside influencers on, say, American elections. Just have a think before you do that share button and use some common sense and some learned sense as well. Anyway, okay. Howdy to everybody. There's so many of you here. It's wonderful to see. I'm not going to call out your names. I hope everybody said hi to David, though. He's once again one of our wonderful members of the team, and I always say he keeps me sane, but it's true. This seriously though, just to get personal for a second, I was really, really sick earlier this week, and the show would not have kept going if it were not for T. Rick Jones and David and Chris and Jack and Marina and everybody pulling together and making the show happen. There were days that I had nothing to do with it because I was like out. So seriously, this show started as a me, and it's not a me anymore. It's a them. Anyway, um, let's see. Benjamin says, sorry, I'm skipping around a little bit, but this one tickles me. He says, don't open the visor on the zero figure. Correct. I will not be removing the outside of it and exposing him. So here's the thing that I keep trying to figure out if I can make happen is I would like somebody to build a case for an Apple HomePod Mini that looks like Zero. You would be covering up the speaker, so it'd be difficult, but it'd be kind of cool because, like, if you have a HomePod, the Siri little thingy looks exactly like Zero. Looks exactly like Zero. And that would be just incredibly cool to have that sitting on your thing, especially if you could reprogram the voice to sound a little more, because apparently they're bringing out a sort of a gender neutral Siri is supposed to be coming out later this year soon. I'm not 100% sure when, and that'd be great. That'd be amazing. Anyway, all right. Oh, and they will almost 100% be fully assembled. These are not models, they're action figures. So they'll come in a blister pack, with sometimes with I haven't seen the packaging yet, but they're fully assembled. This is not a snap things together kind of thing for those figures for Star Trek Prodigy. Christoph brings up an interesting point. Maybe the Star Trek 4 movie would be animation. Actually, which mm, realistically, I don't think that will happen. However, keep in mind, gosh, I'm trying to remember the story. It was late last year. I want to say Ramsey Naito, who was something. Forgive me, I can't remember what her title was at Nickelodeon. She's retaining that title at Nickelodeon and has also been promoted to include a major role at Paramount Pictures. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna look it up on Daily Star Trek News right now. Wish I could share my screen with you. Ah, here we are. Look at that. See, sometimes it's useful. Nickelodeon's Ramsey Naito expands role to add Paramount Films animation and development. This happened October of last year. And one of the reasons that we reported on it last year was because it was important to note that Ramsey Naito was one of the people that helped develop Star Trek Prodigy for Nickelodeon. This was way back before. I want to say this was before Viacom CBS was Viacom CBS, because CBSI Animation Studios was developing Star Trek Prodigy, but it was going to be a Nickelodeon exclusive, and Ramsey Naito was one of the people who had a hand in developing that. So part of the reason that we reported on it at Daily Star Trek News is because you're absolutely correct. It would not surprise me to see the idea of a Star Trek animated film being floated at some point, Prodigy or otherwise. Let's see. Da, 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 da. And yes, and Christoph says, yes, there was an interview thinking aloud about a potential Prodigy big screen movie. Yeah, I remember that as well. I don't remember what interview that was or who said that, but it would have been like Alex Kurtzman or the Heyman brothers or somebody. Let's see if I can find that too. Robert Kaiser asks, "What's your opinion on Viacom CBS renaming themselves to Paramount?" I think it's a good move. I actually talked about it at length last week on the show, so you can go back and see my full review of that. I think it's wise. I think it helps them align with what's going on with Paramount Plus, and it brings them in line with expectations for things like um, Disney and Disney Plus and Apple TV Plus and you know, HBO Max and I'm forgetting something else that's also a plus. I can't remember. Um, I know that it's sometimes counterintuitive to think, oh, I'll just do the same thing that everybody else is doing. But actually, what it is, we're in a market now where people expect, okay, we have a big company that produces content, the whatever that name is plus or pro or max or whatever is the streaming service. So for it to be Paramount and Paramount Plus makes sense. Also, Viacom CBS is never going to split back up into Viacom and CBS. And what does Viacom CBS even mean? So I think it's a good move personally. Um, excuse me. Plus, that mountain is way more cool than just the Viacom CBS. I can see now why they never spent any money on a logo. Whatever. Anyway, guys, I'm losing my voice. It's going downhill rapidly. So I'm going to sign off here. But I do appreciate everyone for joining today. It was lovely to see all of you here. And hopefully we can reconvene next week without me coughing. And hopefully by then, I will be able to lead off the show saying the war is over. Let's see what we can do. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice rest of your weekend and live long and prosper. And I'll see you next week. Bye.